Hello, you're welcome to another episode of Freedom Friday on Mineral TV. This is the fourth episode, and my name is Stephen Oyedemi. Today we'll be having a conversation on doing business in Nigeria and the imperative of free market. And I have with me a lecturer and researcher at the Department of Economics of the University of Ibadan, Dr. Mutiu Oyinlola. And together we'll be having a brief conversation on this issue and a number of things around this topic. Dr. Oyinlola, it's nice to have you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I'll just go straight in. How would you describe doing business in Nigeria? What's the reality of doing business in this country today?
Well, thank you for that. We are in a very special environment today, special in the sense that it's almost all the countries around the world experiencing what we call recovery after the pandemic and the lockdown that occasioned the pandemic. So currently we have countries around the world trying to revamp their economies. They're trying to do whatever it is they can to ensure that we go back to pre-pandemic period. And that also include attraction of investments, into these countries. Of course, during the pandemic, there was almost a halt to investments, especially foreign direct investment coming to countries around the world. And because they have to take care of themselves before they can actually, move capital or invest in another country. And that's affected Nigeria. So it's been very, very, very harsh business environment in the last 5 years or so. First, with respect to exchange rate, we know what the exchange rate was in 2015, and for a country that is import dependent in terms of resources, in terms of input, for even businesses and all these SMEs to especially the ones in the manufacturing sector to produce, that has plays a huge constraint for them in terms of acquiring capital, also in terms of remitting the capital back to where that capital has been acquired. So it's been very tough for businesses. It's been very, very tough years for businesses. And one can say that, yes, it can be general, especially around the world, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic. But we know countries around the world are doing their best in order to revamp these economies. But for Nigeria, it's been a mixed feeling regarding businesses.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Of course, when we look at practical experiences of a lot of businesses, small and medium enterprises today, they are faced with a lot of challenges. The rising energy costs now is putting a huge strain on businesses, and especially the inflation that I think is connected to the exchange rate problem that we have. Right now, I believe the unemployment problem, because SMEs also create employment for a lot of people, and if they are unable to do well, it will also affect our unemployment situation. So how do you think this situation can be salvaged, particularly looking at the energy cost and the difficulty of doing business? For the practical average business today, it's very difficult to do business, to buy energy, a lot of things. How do you think we can practically solve this problem?
Well, thank you for that. Energy is an input, and this is an input. And when we talk of energy for businesses, I think we should be mindful of the fact that most businesses in Nigeria are actually self-powered. In other words, they rely on their generators to operate. And for those that rely solely on this generator, especially the diesel generator, you will know that in the last few months, we've had a gradual increase in the oil price up to the point where it was actually above $100 per barrel.
Yes.
For diesel, AGO, that is already deregulated, the international or the change in international price will pass through to the retailer. And of course, that means it will add to the cost of production for these SMEs. And if the cost of production is high, that means it has to translate into the price of the products. So that we have increase in inflation, especially in the last few quarters, and I think for last year it's around, on the average, around 17%. It's only in the last quarter of last year, I think, that this has really, went down up to around 15%. But on the average, it was 70%. So we are looking currently this year, and it will still be, whether you like it or not, you can say it's a bit lower than that of last year. We are still talking double-digit inflation in Nigeria. Okay? So that, how much is your returns? How much, what's the ROI for all this investment by these SMEs? And will that be able to cover the costs of the inputs? One of which is the fuel. But we also have the personnel cost that is rising. Okay, these personnel are workers, that actually go to the market where products have actually increased. So definitely they will have to demand for increase in wage in order to survive and meet up with what the current price. So it's been very tough for businesses. We can't rule that out. And what can they do in this kind of environment? It's a very tough question to deal with from the practical sense.
And talking about the energy cost now, because it's a particularly interesting area to shed more light on. You mentioned that AGO had been deregulated, so whenever there's a rise in crude oil prices, it will translate to a rise in the AGO. But for the normal gasoline that we buy, it's still 165 naira. So it gives, some people believe that government should keep subsidizing all of these products. Government is still subsidizing gasoline. Should the government have been subsidizing AGO too, looking at the cost of subsidy and the fact that recently, I think the Senate passed the 4 trillion naira budget. It's so huge on our mega resources. So I don't know, this is a dicey area to talk about, but what would be your suggestion on this particular area?
Okay, I think you just mentioned the issue of the subsidy reform. And for Nigeria, they've been trying to reform that part, and they've succeeded in removing subsidy on kerosene and also the diesel, the AGO. What they've not succeeded in doing is removing that of the petrol PMS. Okay. And like you rightly said, around 4 trillion naira has recently been sent as a bill to the National Assembly for them to pass, so that they'll be able to adequately take care of the subsidy in 2021. That 4 trillion naira would have first solved the problems to a very large extent. To a very, very large extent. It would have solved the problem in the education sector, in the health sector. Let them have 2 trillion each for this sector. You will see all these problems being solved. Okay? And it is important for us to highlight that. While it is, or it may be at the initial stage, very difficult for the common people to live with petrol price maybe around 700 naira per liter. That's a very huge. Okay?
That's the bone of contention. People have to pay more for this.
People have to pay more.
It's a huge...
And the fact is, there's what is called the loss function, which is actually the welfare we're talking about here. The welfare of the people will go down. But what will the government do? Okay? Because when we say the people, it is, we discover that the bulk of the subsidy are actually being enjoyed by the very rich
people in society.
They benefit more from the subsidy than the poor. Okay? So if we now have to remove it, and the poor will also be affected, then the government should actually do something to take care of this poor. Not by creating another subsidy in quotes to take care of them, but there are programs that should be, and which the government is currently doing, programs meant for the poor, population, and that should be strengthened, and there should be emphasis on that in the course of the removal of the subsidy.
Looking at Nigeria's foreign direct investments, what do you think are the barriers to Nigeria attracting more investments? Because we really need it. What are those barriers?
Simply, with the right returns on investment, there will be investments in Nigeria. Nigeria's foreign direct investment over the years have only been in the oil sector. Okay. You hardly see, the huge amount that we expect in other sectors, especially sectors that like agriculture. Okay. The oil sector will continue to take hold and hold firm for the next few years to come, but there is already a challenge for that sector.
Transition already.
Of course. So that, in a way, affects the kind of investment that investors want to do in that sector at all.
I believe that free market policies that attract, that make it easy for people to do business, that make business rewarding for investors, are necessary to drive growth and create jobs and all of that. Do you think there are some things that our governments, especially both at the federal and state levels, need to do to reduce those barriers to trade and investment and doing business? We've talked about electricity. It's not something that easy to approach. But what about taxation? Some of these other barriers and hindrances that government puts in the way of businesses that we could practically reduce in order to boost doing business in the country. What would be your suggestion in that area?
Okay. You've mentioned something around tariff, and I think you mentioned something around the tax.
Yes.
Yes. In terms of tariff, I believe the current rate is around 30% for imported, let's just take an item, imported vehicles, around 30%. That's huge. Okay. Mainly, those kind of things are levied to encourage, first to drive revenue, that's one, then to encourage local production. So that if people find it a bit costly to import those kind of vehicles, then they then look within the country to produce there. No, we do produce. What we have is assemblage, and we have complex like Nissan, Dangote, Peugeot, just open, not quite long. No. We have a Inosin, also coming up. Even though they go in the ways of trucks, and you can see the patronage by government entities of these companies. So there's something going on here. It's not really where it should be because of the production line is a bit slow. They only churn out a few vehicles per day, and the demand is not so high up there. But there are certain things going on in that sector. So whatever it is that is being done to encourage those that particular sector to to boom in a way can be translated to all the other sectors, especially the job creating sectors. We have those in agriculture. Okay, yes, they can say all kinds of things around agriculture. It's labor intensive, that it's not really contributing so much to the GDP in terms of what it should actually be, or in terms of exports. So it might contribute to the GDP, or in terms of exports, you have the oil and gas, taking, being the major export item, especially the oil as a major, export item, while the agricultural products, are not there. There's something about agriculture that needs to be taken into consideration, and that has to do with the value addition in the agricultural sector. Where the big money is for those actors and agents in the agri sector is the high-end product. So if we are able to key into the value chain so that we move away from the base and then operate at the high level where you have the final products which are then highly priced in the market, then we can say we have higher returns in that on that product, and you can then begin to see investments increasing.
What's stopping us? I mean, it's been
a lot of things. Technology is one. We have research in that regard here in Nigeria, but what's the political will to invest in this research and transform the research into products that can be marketed?
Can go into the market.
You understand? So we just need to reprioritize our ideas and our goals as a country, and that would be holistically be done to ensure that the only relevant courses are done in our universities, so that the product from the universities are already being employed even before they graduate, because they need them to fit into the goal of the country at the time.
So there's really need for that political will to ensure that we are doing things that are market driven.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oyinlola, for having this conversation with me.
All right.
I believe our viewers must have learned a lot from this conversation. One thing we believe is that when we make some of these ideas and solutions to our specific issues more popular, then people can go into positions of authority and remember that this is how we need to solve some of these problems. Yeah. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to have this conversation.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for this platform.
All right.
I really appreciate the conversation.
All right. So that's it on this episode of Freedom Friday. I believe you've learned one thing or the other. I've been having a conversation with Dr. Mutiu Oyinlola of the Department of Economics, University of Ibadan. Until another time, thank you for watching.